Can you hear a dink? All right, we are go.
All right, welcome to another exciting episode of All Things 3D. I'm Chris, and this is my colleague Mike, and we are your hosts, and we are having our monthly Roundtable podcast. This month is 3D in Education. Today is August 26th, 2014, and we have some real exciting guests joining us. We have a full house here. I guess we'll just kind of go around the table here. And start with, let's say, Jesse. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jesse, and kind of a brief introduction, where you come from, and who you work for, and why you're here.
Great. So my name is Jesse Harrington. I work with Autodesk, and what I do with them is I work with the consumer team, which we call it. It's basically we're the people that make sure the free stuff gets to the people who need it. So all of the 123D apps, Tinkercad, anything like that is what we work with, Instructables, and we also have some new exciting things with the Spark platform, as well as some stuff that we can't talk about yet, but that'll be coming up in the fall here.
Yeah, you have a big announcement coming up in the Maker Faire in New York, you said, last week?
Yeah, so Maker Faire New York, there's going to be a couple big announcements there from us and from some of our partnering companies as well. I was very shocked to see some of them.
Cool. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. Next guest is JJ. JJ, can you give us a little introduction about yourself and where you come from?
You look a little blue today, too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm going to need to work on getting a webcam hooked up to my computer. But yeah, my name is JJ Johnson. I work here at CME CNC. I started at the beginning of June, but my background is in education. Prior to this, I was a 9th through 12th grade engineering teacher at Goshen High School, and started 3D printing with my students about 2 years ago using CME CNC's machines.
Oh, they're great. I have a Rostock Max that I run as my kind of my home built printer. Side by side my big Stratasys machine, and I love being able to print for 1/10 of the cost, and know that if something goes wrong that I can fix it rather than having to call a tech or something. So absolutely love my CME CNC machine. So thanks for being on our broadcast. And next we have John, who's also from CME CNC. Tell us where are you located, and where are you located again?
Yeah, I'm John Oley from CME CNC, and our shop's here in northern Indiana. We're about 15 miles south of the Michigan line, stuck in the middle of the Midwest.
I wouldn't say stuck in the middle.
I don't know, I just came back from Seattle. I'd say stuck in the middle.
Oh. I'm assuming you like Seattle then, huh? I just got finished watching the final episode of The Killing, which was all based in Seattle, so I'm a little darked out from Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, they had maybe 1 or 2 days of sun.
Oh, there's more than that. We just tell everybody that to keep you out of there.
Okay, so we also have Sander from the Netherlands with Ultimaker. So brief introduction, please, Sander.
Hi, I am Sander van Gelen, the community manager at Ultimaker. I've been with Ultimaker for approximately 3 years now, so almost from the beginning. And I do a lot of communication for Ultimaker. I'm in touch with the community, obviously, and I take care of a lot of the events we go to. Meet a lot of great people. Basically, if you think of a few awesome things to do in relation to 3D printing, good chance that I'll be doing a few of them with Ultimaker.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us all the way from the Netherlands. And we definitely love Ultimaker too. Mike has an Ultimaker machine, and I hope to have one someday soon. And we just love how open source it is, and just all the contributions you guys have made over the last couple of years. So really great products, and we really have loved to watch you grow. And so Susan also joining us. So tell us a little bit about you and where you come from.
Well, I am the Director of Communications for Matter and Form Inc., and we have just within the last week launched our first product, which is the Matter and Form 3D scanner. And I'm really excited to be part of the education chat here today because actually it completely surprised us because we designed the product for designers. Our founder was a designer, and he actually created it because he couldn't afford a 3D scanner. So he wanted to create something that he could afford and that other designers would be able to afford. Put it on Indiegogo, expected 100, 150 people, and thousands of people backed this thing. So he actually had to quit his job and start a company.
Wow.
but along the way, what we had anticipated was that it would be for designers, but teachers shocked the heck out of us because they came out in droves, and it was because it lets them demonstrate the principles of STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It lets them actually do some really hands-on stuff, and more importantly than them doing the hands-on stuff, getting the kids doing stuff. So what was abstract became real. So teachers have become a really important component, and we've been doing some really interesting outreach. And my background actually was in producing and writing educational programming for broadcasters, including for PBS, and also handling outreach around that. So it's kind of an interesting way of pulling it all together. Oh, it's very long-winded, but thanks for having me.
Hey, well, thanks for being with us. Yeah, we're really we anticipate later on today, Mike and I are gonna do a follow-up podcast and actually do an unboxing of the Matter Inform, because he has a reward that came to him. He was part of the Indiegogo campaign, one of the pledgers, and so we're gonna unbox it and hopefully maybe do a little bit of scan this afternoon and play around with it. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're aware of it, Susan, but we had Trevor on
I know.
2 months back. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been exciting.
Yeah.
To actually have one in my hands now. So, like I said, I'm going to put it through its paces and then kind of talk about it on Friday as well for our 3D in review. So let's go ahead and get right into the news, because I know that we all have busy schedules, or in the case of Sander, he's ready for bed pretty soon. So I don't want to keep you up too late, and some of you are on your lunch hours. So I'd like to go ahead and move forward for the first item. So if you had a chance to look at what the 3 news items, one of them was the 3 educational initiatives. And we're seeing this more and more, and I thought maybe we could talk about this, and maybe you could add to it or maybe take away from it. So I'm going to share that screen with you. Let's see, are we up there?
Yep,
okay, we're up. And now I'm going to actually have to produce this. Anytime you click on one of these little icons on the bottom, then I have to manually go through and click on it. So if you start talking and you don't see your face right away, bump me or something. I'll make sure. But the first item is that the 3 things that they have a few of them there. I'll run through it. One is let's see, make.digital. I think a lot of you are familiar with this. They have put a series of books out, but they're also doing some nonprofit items. And the other one here is MakerBot Academy. I think all of us have an opinion about MakerBot. Maybe we can share that. And then the Tinkering U, which looks like a Canadian 3D printer manufacturer. So maybe you could talk about that, Susan. So these are 3 items. Maybe, obviously, that list is incomplete. I think there are others. Jesse, I think you might want to add to that. I know that Autodesk has a big initiative of pushing their free products. Pushing is, I guess, not a good word.
It's like a drug.
Yeah. Introducing their free Autodesk products into the market. So let's kind of talk about the first one. Let's see, what did we have? Make.digital. Anybody want to start here? Okay, that's an exciting one. Well, if you use
I haven't really heard very much of that one, so I'll have to go.
Okay, well, they have a whole series of books that they've been. I get emails for them, so I'm assuming that's what they're looking at. But I guess they also have lesson plans now, which first time I've heard of that. But they have a whole series of books and it looks like they're moving this into the classrooms. And they've got some interesting curriculum and some interesting books. So,
you know, I can't really speak to this one, but I can say the real trick to having a successful educational outreach program, just from the work we've done in the past, is really making sure that you give your teachers the materials that they need to be confident, and making it as accessible as the kids, because ultimately, really, it's going to be the kids that teach the teachers. The kids are going to adapt to this much more quickly, but making sure that the teachers have what they need to at least feel like they can get things started. So it's great that they've got the lesson plans. That's absolutely critical.
Yeah, I agree with you. And JJ, you identified that you teach as well, correct? Or
yeah.
Okay. So what do you think of this? Do you think this is a good move?
I think, just like Susan explained, having the resources available, such as lesson plans to support the teacher, it needs to be all-encompassing, but at the same time offer the flexibility for what the teacher is going to be moving in the direction of in the class.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
I've also read I wasn't very familiar with the Make Digital thing, but I read about it prior to this broadcast. And what I liked about it is that it was kind of a write-up of a process on how to develop something. So it wasn't necessarily aimed on educating on how to 3D print, because I think during the process of education that will cover only the first 3 classes, and then you kind of know how to operate a 3D printer. Of course, CAD modeling takes a little bit longer. But the thing I think is what you want to focus on education is not how to 3D print. That will only be a tool, but you want to go over the entire process. You want to learn kids how to develop things, how to go through the entire process, what are all the parts of the process, and learn them what it is, make them familiar with the experience of making things. Something that I feel that we're now struggling with to break through is to make us aware that we can make things, and I think kids they are still more familiar with that feeling than maybe we as adults are.
Yeah, and as mentioned, Sandra, we have some topics that kind of talk about, not only the process of printing and learning how to do that, but how can these tools be used in current curriculum. So maybe we can talk a little bit more at that point. So the next item that is the MakerBot Academy. Oops. I have multiple screens. If you see my mouse moving on something that doesn't work, that's why. So the MakerBot Academy essentially is, obviously they've made some money and they're trying to put it back into the educational system, but it's almost like they're taking a page out of Apple and Google and the rest of them. The more you can put their machines in the schools, the more the parents are going to buy their machine later on. So this could be a great marketing method for, obviously, all of us, is to kind of move in that direction. Does anybody want to have any feedback?
Yeah, we worked with them pretty heavily on that initial concept and getting things into classrooms a few years ago. And now we're kind of stepping back and researching, okay, now that we put 1,000 printers into classrooms, what are they doing with them? And what we're finding out is it's the same issue every time. Most of them are sitting in the back of the classroom collecting dust because either the printer didn't work so well, or they don't have curriculum to help their history course or their science course, or the courses that they're state mandated to use it. So unless there's a makerspace or a fab lab in the school itself, I think a lot of people are struggling with that. So working with MakerBot currently, on some of the stuff with getting our software in educational form and curriculum form, it's kind of mission critical to having any of this be successful in the classroom, for all these every company to do this, to look into STEAM, and really make sense for an average teacher who doesn't want to spend the extra time developing a curriculum.
Yeah, I wanted to make a point. I heard Science Friday a few weeks back, which is hosted by NPR, and they had Bree on, and they were talking about education a little bit. And he made a comment of using several of Autodesk applications which you mentioned by name, but he never mentioned the word Autodesk, which I thought was kind of unusual. And as you said, I was assuming that they had somewhat of a collaboration with you, Jesse. So
it's a love-hate. It's a love-hate type of thing. We love them, but at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of players in the market, and I don't know. I think we just love when anybody uses our tools, and I think we're hoping to provide things that are easy for kids to pick up and are easy for educators to use, and that's the best we can do.
Yeah, I think SolidWorks. That's probably one of the reasons why they're so dominant in the engineering field, is because they have these such a tight knit or like such a tight educational kind of, I don't know, the way they package it for universities or teach instructors. I'm not exactly sure how they steal so much of the academic market, but I find a lot of the engineers, especially locally in California, in the the CSU kind of atmosphere, SolidWorks seems to be pretty dominant. I mean, Autodesk you see a lot now, more and more, obviously. So you guys are definitely making some headway, but I see a lot of users coming out of the university because they are developing academic programs.
Yeah, and at the university level, I'm a college professor here at Rochester Institute of Technology, and I started out teaching SolidWorks. I mean, it's industry standard if you want to get into industrial design or engineering, and it's something you have to learn. And I think the foundation there is extremely important for engineering students. And there's lots of new things in the market that are kind of surpassing that in different ways, and I think those are equally as important to learn. But one thing that we're really focused on is not so much the college engineering kids. That's our old core audience, and now it's how do I get my 5-year-old niece to start building catapults and having fun?
Right.
Using programs. Yeah.
Something.
Go ahead, Susan.
Was the two things. One is the fun component, because one of the best compliments we've ever gotten in anything is, gosh, I was having so much fun, I didn't even know I was learning, or you tricked me into learning. And that's, people value what they discover over what you tell them. So you can push something at a kid all you want, but if you give them the parameters where they actually get to discover science principles, or they get to discover art, and they get to discover their own inspiration, then they're actually going to be wanting to incorporate those materials. So it's really about finding that, not finding a structured push this out at your kids and make it as boring as humanly possible so it becomes just like all the other textbooks that sit in the back and that nobody wants to engage with. It's really about finding ways to let people inspire themselves. And one of the things that we're doing that we're very excited about is we've partnered with Laurier University, because we also believe that you can go younger. And it was interesting to hear about kindergarten, because we absolutely agree, kids, they get that sort of stuff, and when they make sense of it so quickly. So we're doing a study that will look at the grade 3 market and how kids use this technology.
If I've got a kind of a glazed look in my eye, you're hypnotizing me, Susan, with that clock behind you. I'm watching the little arm go around. Oh, well.
How much mess can you see? That's what I
know. It's fun.
Yeah, and so I mean, like this just shows. I mean, like even geometry when you're a kid. I mean, geometry, how much more exciting would geometry have been as a kid when we were taking it in school if it would have been in 3D, if we were using Tinkercad or one of these things and able to print out our geometric shapes or whatever and explore geometry. Because in reality, geometry is not really a two-dimensional, I mean, there's no such thing as two-dimensional. We live in a three-dimensional world, but we didn't learn 3D geometry until much later on, and so like we learned basic shapes that were drawn on 2D on a piece of paper, and trying to figure out surface areas or whatever. But really, that's not practical. Now, the type of geometry we should be learning is in the third dimension. We should be learning how to use the tools to generate, components or parts or whatever. That would be the most practical thing that I could see.
Right.
So John and JJ.
Sorry, I just wanted to say. Go ahead, Sandy. Sorry. Or Jesse.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the same thing goes for history, and we can't leave those type of things out, right? Where the history component now with 3D scanning that's so much more accessible to kids to be able to go to a museum and scan something and really internalize it, versus what we used to do is go there and read plaques and steal stuff and walk out. Yeah.
Totally.
Oh, that's why we don't have anything in our museums anymore.
Yeah, I'm one.
I'm looking at your shelves back there. What's that thing up there? The Pharaoh's. So, JJ and John, do you have anything to add to the MakerBot thing? I mean, being a 3D printer in the United States, how does this affect you, or have you motivated you into moving more into putting your own 3D printers in school, or do you want to hold off for a discussion on talking about it?
Well, actually, I didn't even find out about the MakerBot Academy outside of what was on their website for a while. They had that MakerBot Academy thing where you could go on there, and then it took you to a website to donate money to help another school buy a MakerBot. But it wasn't until after we actually worked with JJ and started our See Me Educate curriculum before we knew they even had any sort of plan. So it wasn't well documented, or it wasn't very public facing it for a long time.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's more of a behind-the-scenes type activation, and then trying to push themselves more into the national news, which is how I found out about it. So let's move on to the last one, and then I'm going to come back to Susan on it, because it appears that I didn't even know Canada had a 3D printing industry. But it appears that you do, and it's called Tinkerin, so my bad, I guess. So are you working with them? Do you know about it, Susan?
I know about it. I know about them, and we're kind of looking at them because, a rising tide lifts all boats. So if we can find ways of working with other interesting people who are doing interesting things, we have really just started kind of moving into that space. So that's certainly somebody that we're looking at to kind of talk with. But I can't say I'm an expert on it. And really, when you're a digital citizen, all of this stuff is live online, so it really doesn't matter where you live.
That's right. Our audience is our guests are an example of that around the world. We just needed somebody from Asia, but I couldn't get somebody. Next time, maybe. So anybody else want to chime in? Have they heard of Tinkerin? Is this the first time that they've been brought up?
No, they've been around for a while. I think maybe 3 years ago I met up with them in Maker Faire, New York, and then one of my buddies, Todd Blatt, works for them now, I think. They were out Bay Area Maker Faire and U.S. Science and Engineering Festival in D.C.
Oh, good.
Tinkering.
We've kind of lost your camera, John. Was that intentional?
Not necessarily.
I don't know if you're looking at your screen now, but you've gone dark
from time to time.
Yeah. Okay. So let's kind of go right into the topics, or actually one item. I'm going to jump ahead to the last item. Kind of the negative. Widespread 3D printing in classroom is still a decade out. I think that'll have some lively discussion. Yes. Is it a decade out? Anyone?
I don't think it is, and I think one of the problems has been, and we hope to help solve this, but I think people haven't had meaningful things to print. So there's only so much junk and so many tchotchkes that you can actually print. So our hope with providing an affordable scanner is that people can actually take real-world objects that matter to them and bring them in and manipulate them and do things with them and use them more meaningfully. And I think yes, there's that early adopter fascination, so it's bridging that gap into it being actually practical. So I think we've got a generational thing too, but we do see older teachers really willing to embrace it, and I think younger teachers will embrace it. I don't think it's a decade out, though. I think it'll be slow, but I think it will continue.
I agree, and I also agree on what you said, that for some time now people don't know what they can print, and I think that's because of there are still a lack of diverse materials available, of materials that has extra features. For example, more like rubber-like or magnetic materials or conductive materials. And also, CAD modeling is still quite difficult to learn. However, there are now more and more applications surfacing that make it easier for kids to make things. But
more
right
accessible.
now, I think, right now I think by without the scanning, if you can just download things, a lot of people feel like they have a box of crayons and a coloring sheet, and they can only color between the lines something that someone else has already created. And we want people to make their own drawings, make their own modeling things. I feel that the technology can still develop or mature much more, and I think we're only surfacing of what's possible. But I think it can already make its way towards education, because the kids who are now in elementary school, they will be using this technique in 15 or 20 years when it has more matured, and they already need to get familiar with it.
So anybody else?
I would love to just add one thing, and that was that when we were looking at developing the scanner, one of the things we wanted to do was make sure that the scanner actually did the modeling work for you, so that we're trying to take out some of the restrictions, the things that really bogged people down from using it. So you raised that point about the CAD modeling kind of being a barrier. So that's actually one thing we tried actively to address with this.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I think another thing is a lot of times reporters that are writing kind of the other side of the other people that are not necessarily as optimistic as people like us. Reporters, they kind of report on what is currently. They're not really visionary in a sense, you know. And like it goes back to the famous Henry Ford saying, if I asked the customer what they wanted, I would be making a faster horse, you know. So the reporters out there that are writing a lot of these articles and kind of skeptical of 3D printing and how important of a role it is, and whether you believe it's a new industrial revolution or not, they don't necessarily have vision a lot of times. So I would say that that it's already in the classrooms, and we're just going to see more and more of it. And more kids with these at home and getting into the 3D modeling. I could see that happening within the next couple of years.
What I think would also be an important feature in order to enable 3D printing into education is what I think 3D printing would also emphasize in society is that you will need a lot more sharing and collaborating between schools in order to educate each other. And I think that's also part of Altmaker's vision in the way that we feel that we should address 3D printing towards education, is more collaboration and more sharing of knowledge, because the technology is going to change every year probably, and you don't want every school to reinvent the wheel every time something new comes along. You want people to educate each other. I mean, if I have a good idea, if I give it to you, then I still have the same good idea, except I make you also richer with the idea.
You know, and I think we're seeing that a lot there's all these alternative curriculum sharing sites, right? I mean, even Instructables, people are using Instructables to share curriculum now, or to share small projects that you can give to another teacher. That's the stuff we see all the time at every Maker Faire. Is like, one instructor shows us the cool project they made, and then they showed us, you know, how 5 other people copied it, and it's great. That's what I think is one of the barriers that we're very quickly getting over. But then you're still the cream of the crop, right?
Yeah.
So I'd like to move on to our topics, but we seem to be already covering a lot of them. So I'm going to skip right to B, which is, as we already talked about, this is being introduced to people in kindergarten. And I'm just wondering, is this going to create a new mindset? Obviously it is. So
the 3D visionaries of the future.
Yeah, exactly. So are we seeing that? I mean, we're already seeing that with kids today with iPads and computers, and you know, teenagers that can't go away from their iPhones and their other Android type devices. And I'm just wondering, you know, is what's going to happen now? They're going to have a portable printer everywhere. They'll have a briefcase now with everything in it. Their scanner, their 3D printer, their computer, so they can create anything and anything. It's going to be a whole different world.
You've seen kids in kindergarten. This is happening.
I know.
You've seen it? I have. Oh. I haven't seen it in kindergarten.
There's some videos out there. I haven't actually touched the child.
Actually, we given quite a few to kindergartens, and a lot of the people are use Tinkercad to create stuff in their small classrooms, and then or like summer camps, especially for really young kids like 5 and 6 year olds. They'll use Tinkercad, and then instead of 3D printing it, because not everyone has one, they export to Minecraft, and then they're like bringing their creations into a video game they're already playing, and then through Printcraft or whatever, taking it back out. So, I mean, it's happening whether we like it or not.
That's one of the nephews. That's one of our nephews' favorite things. He spends hours in Minecraft, and
well, that's why I think the Oculus VR is big, not only for gaming, but it's going to provide a virtual world with haptic gloves, so that you don't necessarily have to have a 3D printer.
So you can interact with objects.
Exactly. And have your friends come in and interact with the objects before you even print them.
Little Chris Jr.'s first words are going to be offset or fillet or something. Fill it, Daddy, fill it. Engineering terms, I don't know about this.
Totally.
I don't know.
Isn't that already happening?
I guess.
In the internet world?
Yeah.
They know those words. There's a software engineer on one of the podcasts that I listen to, and her child is making comments that a programmer would say. I'm wondering if she's a programmer, but she talks about how things have changed for her child, and that one of his first words was like Google or something like that. Google.
The internet age.
So yeah, it's kind of fun. So let's kind of move into the next one, unless somebody else wants to add to this, and that's because you can now create tangible objects, and as you were already talking or alluding to earlier, Chris, that how would that change geometry? And then we talked about history. Now I'm able to fabricate something historical because all these 3D models are available. So a teacher could have a representation based upon an era that she's discussing, instead of just copy from a book. That what's better, a 3D object?
Yeah, or like OpenSCAD, for instance. It's basically programming. It's interactive programming with 3D modeling. So I think it's kind of a cool way to learn both 3D modeling and computer programming, because you can visually see how your code on the fly is affecting the model.
Susan, you want to add to this? I saw you going to sleep there. I thought I'd wake you up.
No, actually, it kind of triggered another thought, but no, I don't really have anything meaningful to add.
Plus, it's an excuse to watch your clock.
I think a lot that's been added there too is because of the 3D printing craze. Like, I think you see things like Arduino and like online circuitry, like Circuits.io or any of those type of websites, really gaining steam. So it's this whole like learning digitally in general, and not just 3D. I think there's lots of components that are kind of surfacing that way that make it a lot more compelling for a teacher to get involved.
Definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree, and obviously we have our own library here that's been very involved in it, and I was hoping to have somebody from the library on, but it's probably too last minute. But it would be interesting to see what's happening to the actual libraries. I guess I can come back to ourselves.
Yeah, I could definitely see, because maker fairs are obviously becoming more localized, and
we had our own.
But I could definitely see in all schools that have science fairs, pretty much either having a competing fair, like a maker fair, mini maker fair, or even replaced, because they're kind of more relevant in a way. When your kid's actually making something that could change the world.
In Toronto,
making a vinegar baking soda volcano.
The libraries are having to reinvent themselves, so we're seeing, for example, in Toronto, they're really embracing the concept of being a makerspace, and of also using that to kind of gain a whole new relationship with their existing customers, but also their future customers and donors, because if they simply stay who they are, they won't succeed. So they're really moving aggressively into the makerspace area here in Canada, and actually throughout the U.S. as well. We've been in contact with a lot of libraries, really trying to figure out what kind of content they would need to adapt this technology and how we can be helpful to them. And it's really interesting to see how they're really moving into that space.
Great. website resource to check out is makeitaatyourlibrary.org. We work in partnership with them, and they have a lot of really good information about how to convert your makerspace. Also, we give out all of our software for free to any makerspace or library. So, I mean, I think we get
your software.
Yep. So we get I don't know, probably 2 requests a week from different libraries. But I'd love to see that escalate to the point that we have to actually make a program out of it instead of me just writing out codes.
Great.
Wow.
Hey, John and JJ, I've been quiet over there. Wake up. How about pitching in here and give us some feedback?
Yeah, so the library thing, Chicago Public Library has a pretty cool makerspace in it now, right in downtown, as well as the earliest, I guess, rumblings I heard of libraries looking at becoming more of a makerspace was down in Fort Wayne at Allen County Public Library. They worked with a group called Tech Venture, and they had a maker lab out in a converted office trailer in the parking lot forever, and now they're kind of rolling it into the actual library now that they've kind of gained the momentum that they needed and the community support.
That's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else before we move on to my next question, which is kind of interesting? Susan, I keep muting your mic, not because we don't want to hear from you, but there seems to be some background noise that pops in once in a while. So if you see a little symbol on your icon.
Yeah, I have. That's actually why I stopped talking, because I thought, oh, maybe I'm talking too much. Let me.
No,
when
not
you
at
said
all.
wake up. So.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item. You know, we have like the electronics class, shop class. Are we going to start seeing new classes like the 3D class, the robotics class?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess they already have internet class. It's been a while since I've been in.
JJ?
Now.
Well, I think 3D printing can fulfill multiple roles in education. I think how to 3D print, that will only be a small part, but I think the most crucial thing that we could learn or educate is how to make other things, how to develop things. I mean, a 3D printer, it can be a tool to make another tool that you use in a process, or it can be a tool to work towards an end product, and whatever that is, I think that is extremely wide.
Sorry about that, Sander.
Yeah.
So, anybody else?
Yeah, go ahead, JJ.
Yeah, I can chime in there pretty good from firsthand experience. You know, I taught a class at the high school, and we actually built a car from the ground up, and you know, we're using some old school technologies, but we're introducing new school technologies with 3D printing. This year, we took that car to Houston, Texas, and we raced that. And we had 13 3D printed parts in that car, including the sprocket as part of the drivetrain. The students to go through the problem solving of, you know, something as simple as what's the shrink rate of ABS plastic once you print that, to how do we make this custom enclosure for an Arduino, and then to find out, oh my gosh, we have a lot of water that comes in when it rains through the wheel holes. How do we make this waterproof? So we've been using 3D printing as a supporting technology in the curriculum, not so much as the focus around the curriculum. But your topic there on will this be you know, coming in and replacing classes? I think it's definitely going to be a great supporting technology to a lot of existing courses and future curriculums that schools come up with.
So you see it as more of a tool then, you know, kind of like the drill press or the rotary saw or something like that. You have the 3D printer. You know, John, in the name of your company, CNC, I'm assuming that you've worked with CNC machines too.
One or two.
Yeah, I would think. Are we already seeing those in shop classes in high school for some time now, or is that also because of the lower cost, because you now have stepper motors and things like that, making it cheaper? Are we seeing that as a prominent item as well?
Man, shop classes back for 20 years have had CNC machines in them. The problem has usually been they don't have teachers that know how to use them, so they don't know how to teach the kids how to use them. I'm sure JJ can back me up there. We have a few local area schools that have some really nice equipment that they're just lacking in, you know, the management side of it. They don't know how to use them and apply them yet. But on like what JJ was saying, as a supportive role, there's quite a lot of hype about 3D printing being the do-all, end-all for everything, and it's really hard to convince people sometimes that it's not the best tool for everything. It's just another tool that we didn't know we had a few years ago. So guys trying to print their entire cars or their airplanes, they're oftentimes misled by the media in how to go about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But as we have these tools more and more in the classroom, it starts to create a new mindset in the way, instead of ordering a component, you say, well, can't we just fabricate it here, or maybe we can design it a little differently to work better. So I can see that happening more, that you're actually more involved with the full design cycle instead of just, possibly the theory portion. You can actually design components. That's the way I've been using it. And
that's also something that I often say is that we're now also on a course on changing people in a way that they're no longer a passive consumer, but they can be more of an active maker.
Yeah, well, we're talking about the output portion of it. Let's talk about the input, Susan. I've made part of my business on doing 3D scanning, so I'm just thinking, we still have to bring in tangible objects into digital form so that we can either modify them or make something completely new. And as you said, your teachers are already starting to see that as an opportunity. You want to add anything else to that? Oh, we lost you, Susan. So, kids, that was our class on Can You Read Lips?
Nope, still nothing.
Still nothing. So anybody else want to add into that? Maybe we can get Susan her voice back.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most popular things that we've been doing around the world when we go, it's like if we're going to 3D print show, we try to organize an event either the day before or the day after that's a scan-a-thon for kids. So we'll like go into a museum or go out into a public park and talk about the history of the park and then have them do all the scanning while they're out there. And then we'll have one of our service providers like Shapeways or somebody like that co-sponsor it with us and do the prints. So far we've only done them in Europe, but it seems to work very well, and I think it really adds that extra component.
And what kind of scanner are you using when you do that?
We just use 123D Catch because most of the kids have iPhones or a camera or some way to use a camera, and we're getting good enough results that we can get them printed or clean them up fairly quickly.
It's a fairly effective tool. It's just a little time consuming, but if you're getting a child involved with it from the beginning, it's a good start that they need to remember that things have multiple sides and that you have to look at it from multiple angles. So it gives you a different way of looking at things too, right, Jesse?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and when you can bring a history component in with an art component and, and the science of marble sculpting and things like that and antiquing something, I think that it really gives a nice all-around education. And not to go back to the subject before, but I really feel like that's what 3D printing is doing. It's driving us away from this class and that class and this class and really merging those together as project-based learning. And that's something that we're going to be very slow to adapt to as an educational system, but it's where we need to go.
Yeah, and I think even before 3D printing, that has always been thought of as the best direction is project-based learning instead of these structural, compartmentalized educational systems. So, totally agree. Susan, are you back?
I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
You are back. Yay.
Sorry about that. I when you mentioned feedback, I tried to make an adjustment and did it very badly.
Well, there's great feedback.
It stopped the ringing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So. I really think that we have to remember that all of this stuff is a means to an end. It's not an end in and of itself, and it's evolutionary, and it's going to change, and it's going to surprise us. And I think the thing is that if we're open to the discoveries and learning from those that are our end users and those that we serve, then I think we can continue to be. Then I think we can be super useful, and grow with them and really add value to our society. If we try and impose things, then this technology is not going to go very well. It's really, people will think that this is the be all and end all, and then they're going to disappoint themselves. And I think our real goal, as I mentioned before, it really is to provide means where people can inspire themselves. And if we can instill a sense of wonder and discovery, then the technology will really take off.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to the last question that I have: is this like a netbook or the passing fad of technology that are people going to get disappointed because they're not going to get the best results, or somebody has told them that you can create these exact duplicates and then they find out they can't? So is it going to be like the netbook? So as Susan mentioned, we have to educate people that these are tools that can be used with other things. So let's just kind of go around the table with this, and then we'll conclude and go into kind of our personal area of what's going on in each of your 3D lives. So, Jesse, I'll start with you.
We don't see it like that. I mean, any type of emerging technology, as a culture, we've never actually backed away from. So like the netbooks, one example of a type of technology, but 3D printing as a whole, or additive manufacturing, if you want to call it. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going anywhere. I think maybe in the classroom it might change up how it is documented or shown, but I don't think it's going anywhere. But we have had those early disappointments. It's been around long enough now, and I think a lot of those people are still coming back because the disappointment's still so thrilling and fun that you just want to go fix it and make it better and do the next thing.
Very good. JJ?
Yeah, I do see that we're going to be changing. We're going to see curriculum supported with 3D printing technology, but I don't see it going away. Just the fact that the motivation level that this can provide for the students to get them thinking in a different mindset, to get them applying what they are learning in their other classes, that's one of the huge things, is the application factor. So, yeah, I think they come in with this realization that they're not going to be able to 3D print an entire Xbox or anything like that, but the fascination for the teacher and the student of what they are able to complete with the technology that's available, we'll continue to see it get bolder and better.
And John?
Yeah, so I'm sure all of us know 3D printing isn't really anything new in the first place, right? It's been around for, what, 30 years?
30 years.
1986, 1980,
84.
84 was, yeah.
84. Well, that's when the first patents were applied for, so
right.
Nobody really knows except for a few guys when they first came up with the idea. Right. So I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. It hasn't in the last 30-plus years, so I think we'll see more people trying to find more practical uses than what we see in a lot of the media outlets nowadays with, the food printers where they grind up hamburger and then squirt out a hamburger. But I think we'll see a lot more medical, which is going to lead into a lot of the, I guess, going backwards into colleges, which will trickle down into high schools and get the educational thing, trying to prime the youth for the next generation. But it's not a fad. There's a lot of things out there that are really kind of fatty with the the food printers and all of that, and it's just attention grabs. So I hope we see a little less of that and more of the actual uses and the things that we can do with it.
Yeah, all we can do is keep pushing it.
Yep.
Sander.
I also don't think it will go away that easily, or it will just be a mere hype. I once read somewhere, I don't really recall where, but that the internet changed how mankind handle information, and 3D printing could change the way how we handle physical objects. I think that is a little bit of a large statement to make, but I do think that there is a lot of potential on how it can affect society. I'm a bit hesitant to say it will appear in all classes, but I think through interaction with the kids, that it will be embraced by society and education.
Yeah, agree. And finally, Susan?
I think it offers a great bridge between generations and particularly between students and teachers because they're actually, I think they really want to find ways to engage with each other, and this offers a meaningful, tangible way to actually bring things alive in the classroom. I also agree that the collaboration is going to be critical for this because it would be cost prohibitive for every organization to try and have every item. And also I just think we're moving towards a more collaborative society or global society that we're really trying to find ways of working together in the sharing economy. So I think that there'll be some clunky moments, but I think as people make some really exciting things, you're going to see people, I think it's only going to grow.
Is that a pen you have in your hand?
Yes. I pick up things. I pick up things.
No, I was just talking about, how long has the pen been in our history?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Just a side note. And finally, Chris, I know you've been biting on this.
Oh, well, my thing is with is kind of goes on what Sandra was saying was, it's, I like to refer to it as additive manufacturing, but 3D printing or additive manufacturing is also automated manufacturing. So what we're seeing now is just the cusp of automated manufacturing, being able to come up with something on the computer and having a machine build it. And so what I could see, is in your wood shop classroom, rather than having just some table saws and circular saws and things like that, that are kind of dangerous and kind of old, outdated technologies, we could see some updated, or even in the metal fabrication shops, see some of these automated technologies, automated fabrication technologies coming in, because 3D printing or additive manufacturing is kind of the building block on that, where you come up with your design in the computer and these fabrication technologies build whatever your plan, essentially. So you're coming up, you're manifesting the idea on the computer, but then another machine that's more automated actually builds your design. So I could definitely see this kind of is the first stepping stone. That we're in the very early stages of a really big revolution going on, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. We're speaking to our own choir here, but it's good to see feedback from a lot of people in the industry and where it's going, and those people who are actually working with students. Like young people have embraced the internet. I thought it was the Facebook that was the major change. Oh, never mind. But we've seen lots of changes, and children obviously have embraced anything that goes on. That's why they have pliable minds, and we old codgers don't, but I still fight.
Oh yeah,
flexible.
To think different.
That's right. So there's a lot of kids out there doing that. So now we're going to kind of move on to the next area, which is we'll go around the same direction, but we'll start with Susan. And this is cool 3D stuff that you may be using, something new. It's up to you on what you want to talk about, but a few minutes. And Susan, I know that you have something cool in 3D. It just came out. Maybe you want to talk about it, give yourself a pitch, but anything else that, and we'll kind of go from, if you can see your little icons on the bottom, we'll go from right to left in this case. So Susan, you have the floor.
I think actually, because I've really been very focused with the matter-informed scanner as of late. It was really fun to go to the Seattle show, but one of the things that was exciting for me was to kind of hear about how people are using 3D technology, and we've actually become really good friends with a former Pixar artist. So learning about how other people use technology, so the 3D technology. So it never had really occurred to me how a lot of the Pixar artists actually start in Play, and then they have to get it in, and they used to have to send things off to a $20,000 machine. So just seeing how, Kevin Mack, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's a really fabulous artist, a 3D artist. So I think the thing that has intrigued me of late is 3D in art. And some of the expression with Kevin Mack when we were actually talking yesterday, and he's creating designs that are designed to trigger your brain to think you see things in the design that are not actually there. And then they're designed to trigger things that might stimulate a memory and take you down your own personal journey and then draw you back and then look for something new in there. So I think the way that our cells and the 3D technology can relate to each other in the real world, that's the thing that's kind of fascinating me right now.
Yeah, totally agree with that. So, Sander, anything cool that you want to talk about?
Yeah, actually. I have been hovering over the options for a little bit this afternoon, and I finally decided on something which was just plain cool. I think 2 years ago I met someone in our community who has been a designer, and he wanted to make his own action figurines. And before I got into 3D printing, I was an illustrator, and I like to do character design most, so that's kind of like a weak spot of mine. The guy is named Aaron Thomas. I think you spoke about him a little while ago. He was in the show.
Yep.
Yeah, he made this Ronin figurine, and his website is damagedesign.com. But the cool thing is, sorry?
No, we have an interview with him. I did one 3 or 4 months ago, so check it out.
Yeah, I know, I heard it. And the cool thing is that he made, we have one of the Ronin figurines in our office, and he now made another one for us, which is 3 feet tall, and we're going to bring it to our show in London and New York. So if someone wants to see something completely awesome, they should come and visit our booth, because we're going to have a 3 feet tall action figurine printed on the Ultimaker.
Oh, how fun is that?
Yeah, I know.
So, John, you want to add to that? That's really cool. I'm going to bring up Ronin so that people can see it in a moment, but I'll pass it on to John and then come back to it.
All right, yeah. Some of the cool things I think that we got going on in 3D right now is the resin printers. So we're starting to see, we've got one, there's another Indiegogo campaign from a friend, and I think that's going to be the next big step in desktop 3D printing. So we're starting to get that momentum that it needs to get people to adopt it, and we're learning every day as we go, more from the fails and the successes of there's some neat applications that we didn't think about with the resin printing that we're going to discover as we go.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I was really excited to see. You guys sold out of your betas pretty quick. I think they were up for maybe 2 hours and they were gone.
Yeah.
So, yep. So, in our friend and colleague Brad Hill, like you said, he's got one up on.
Yep.
But he sold out as well. He sold his out in a couple days. So they're kind of hard to come by at this point, but they're going to be more and more accessible. But yeah, I think you're totally right. We're going to see a lot more applications of the resin-based SLA printers.
I think the hard to come by is we're starting to see a little bit more maturity in the companies in figuring out how to do it before they sell it, instead of some of the past years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's all coming together. So there you go. Sander, there's Ronin.
Yeah, he has about 50 movable joints, so you can pose it any way you want. And yeah, it's something I can only dream of ever designing it at one point. I'll stop talking so you can see it.
So he's sending you a 3-foot version.
Yeah. I got in touch with him when I was at Ultimaker before I became the community manager for something totally unrelated, and he said he was working on something cool, and he showed me some of his designs. He was just in a sketching phase at that point, and we've been in touch throughout the entire design of the figurine. And he sent us the first or second prototype of this figurine, so that's the one we have in the office. And then everybody was so amazed by his skills that we asked him to make a 3-foot tall figurine, and he did it.
That is so cool. I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, that'll be really neat. Yeah. So yeah, he was a big fan of the Ultimaker. I don't know if he finally got an Ultimaker 2, but he was a fan of it. And the other thing that some of you may or may not know is that he's from India.
Yeah.
And so you talked about a large community, Susan. yeah, we're international, and there's 3D people, as I call them, 3Ders around the world, and it's really fun to talk to people and what they're doing, both from an artistic perspective, engineering perspective, and or actually creating products in the 3D world. So
yeah, and it was really interesting to hear from him, because he was explaining how a lot of the 3D art from Hollywood gets outsourced to India. So they have giant production companies over there that's what they do. And in 2008, when the whole financial crisis came, they had a huge slowdown of the outsourcing.
Even in India.
So
it's kind of funny.
He was actually put out of work because of that whole thing, and then that's what drew him in to kind of bring on his own projects, and just kind of he had some time to create this figurine that's now kind of like a pinnacle of the open source character design, or not open source, but 3D printed character design.
And there's another guy, Hauser, from Germany, who does something similar as well. So if you go back to some of our earlier podcasts, you'll see an interview with him too, who's doing something similar to this. It's not as open sourced as Aaron is.
What was his name?
I'll have to go back and find it, but I wanted to say Hauser, but may or may not be right.
Okay.
So let's move on to JJ. And what was cool for you this month, this year, this week?
This past month, I've started using Matter Control for operating my 3D printer here at the shop, and I'm really impressed with the Matter slicing engine within that. Seems to be doing a really clean job on my prints. I've been able to recommend it to a lot of people, and they're pretty impressed with it as well.
I'll have to try it out then. Cool. And Jesse?
I would be remiss if I didn't mention Spark, so I don't want to get fired. So basically, no. So we have a whole new platform and a resin printer that's going to be coming out in probably late fall or early spring. Basically it's an open platform to build on top of, so that you can make your own 3D related software. So if you have a company like CME-CNC, and instead of wanting to make your own software from scratch, you could use and build on this platform. It helps you get your slicing, and then you can build customized versions on top of it. And part of that is we're releasing a resin-based printer that's all open source, so that people can experiment with materials. They can experiment with the print head. They can take it apart and do all their stuff with it. But I mean, just every time I talk to people at Pier 9 in San Francisco, they're putting them together by hand over there, and I don't know, it's just like it's totally taken over our company and our way of thinking, and I'm just super excited to see what people do with it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, we'll stay on you, Jesse, and we'll go into either a smile, frown, and I'll combine tips and tricks, so you get your choice. Smile, frown, tips or tricks?
Tips or
Which
tricks?
Category. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Cool. So a good tip that a lot of people don't know about, and we're actually working with Shapeways on right now, is using Mesh Mixer to send your 3D creation to the printer. It's actually something we implemented a couple months ago, but basically after you bring your model into Mesh Mixer, you can make sure that it's watertight. And then from there, you can actually go right to the print button, and it prints out to a variety of printers. Right now, they're mostly Stratasys, OpJet, and MakerBot machines. But we're looking at really expanding that. Type A machines has been a huge help for us there as well, in getting it onto their machine. So we should all talk.
Yep.
So Mesh Mixer will go to a Stratasys machine even.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And it really heals up the model, puts it on the bed, and if it needs support, it'll help generate support. So it's a pretty powerful tool for getting things ready for 3D printing.
Yeah. I have to say that it's my closet tool. All the pro tools, but I still go back to Mesh Mixer for some things. Some things it does better. So, so can't say any more. Mesh Mixer is a cool tool. So JJ, you got anything? Tips, tricks, smiles or frowns?
Man, I'm kind of coming up at a loss here. I did get the program just about 5 minutes before we started the show.
That's no excuse.
Yeah, I know. Why don't you go ahead and pass on me for a minute and maybe come back to me?
John?
Oh, smiles and frowns. How about bad filament and good software?
That's probably.
Have you had a chance to?
You can identify the bad filament. Help out our audience.
Let's just say there's a time and a place to buy things on eBay, and there's a time and a place to not.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Have you had a chance to mess around with the new Repetier software?
I have not. I've actually, me personally, kind of given up on using Repetier.
Oh, no. Well, the new one. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, he went closed source a while ago, and we used to be one of his sponsors, and so that's when we started getting hold of Matter Hackers guys out in California there, and it was right at the time where Matter Hackers decided to release Matter Control as open source.
And so Matter Control is the one.
Matter Control.
Yep. So we kind of switched teams at about that point, and so actually that was one of the agendas for me being in Seattle, was getting together with them to work on Matter Control and software for driving a resin printer.
Interesting. Cool. Well, I do have to say, Repetier, they just recently released 1.0 software. This could be my smile for the week. They brought in Cura Slicer, which obviously is just in many ways a supreme slicer to other, as far as speed and even quality for me. Which Cura, thank you, Ultimaker for.
I'll tell David.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful product, and being able to have that built into Repetier, so it's compatible with my Rostock Max. That's what I've used from the beginning on my Rostock Max is Repetier. So
you'd kind of be bummed then if I told you that Matter Control from day one had Cura Slicer and just
no idea. I had no idea. So there you go. So either way, the addition of Cura Slicer has really improved the efficiency, because I can slice things in a practical time frame now.
Well, I don't know about that. I use Cura day to day, and I bring in some large polygon, which I'm going to show you as my tip trick, and all wrapped into one type thing here in a moment. But I can cause Cura to die. So Sander, let's move on to you. Tip, trick, smile, or frown.
My tips and tricks, it is focused on Ultimaker. That's most of my experience. And my tip would be, it's not made out of sugar. Play around with it, experiment with it, try some new things, maybe break it. You'll manage how to fix it. We can help you out. But yeah, it's a machine, and it can be a lot of fun, and we want to motivate and stimulate people to play around with it and do experimentations and hack it, and that would be my tip, to get out of the box and do something weird.
I've taken that to heart and broken it a few times. So.
I think we've been in touch in that regard.
We have.
Do something weird today.
Okay, so Susan, tip, trick, smile, or frown?
She's muted.
Oh, hang on. No, are you muted? See if you can unmute yourself.
There
you go. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Yes, so I would also fall into the tips and tricks category, and again, because our product is so new, it would be mostly around mine. And I would agree. Try crazy things and kind of have fun and surprise yourself. You know, our goal is to help. It happens to be a scanner, but our goal is to really help you take your imagination as far as it'll absolutely let you. So see how far you can go. And one of the things we're doing is we're creating some crazy recipes, like doorstops out of cheese and banana. You know, just some fun things that people can immediately try. but also have a look for anybody who does have our machine. Have a look at our YouTube page, because we do have 3 videos that walk you through really absolutely everything you need to know. Well, you need to know until you find something new that we haven't thought of, but it will at least get you through the scanner, and we have designed it to be as user-friendly as possible. So upon seeing those videos, and even without them, you should really be able to make use of it. But get in there, try it, and also let us know if you need anything and what you need from us, because that's what we're there for.
Very cool. Very cool. So I get the last item in this area.
Awesome.
I have a big smile because if you remember on Friday in 3D Review, we did a little news item on the guys in Japan who are making gummies. And I said, that's really cool. Not yet, not yet. So I thought, I'm going to do that. One of the things that I've been developing is a lens system for the structure sensor so that you can scan people. So I thought, okay, now that I've created it, plus I own a Form 1, so I've created some high-resolution models, what next? So I thought, how about my own gummies? So I took these models here. I call her, this is actually my wife, the Gypsy Dancer, which is an SLA model. This is Me Stark, which has my scanned face on a, if you're familiar with, what's that series called?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. That's my Game of Thrones character, plus I have a little video where I'm the dire wolf trainer. But then I thought, well, how about making some fun eating stuff in? So on this Friday, I'm going to nibble on my wife. And so I have some chocolate over here. So what I did is on Amazon, they have some silicone mold stuff that's really easy to work. You knead in 2 components of equal amount, and then you knead it for a minute, and then you've got 2 minutes before it sets. So I pressed them in there a little bit too much. They kind of went to the bottom, and they created some molds. So this, like I said, is chocolate. This is a Trader Joe's, no sugar, so you could eat this, Chris, no sugar cranberry juice, gummy, and then right next to it is another gummy, and then some chocolate items, scans of my wife. So I told her on Friday I was going to nibble her. So
you're going to bite your wife's head off.
So if you've got nothing better to do, and join us on or Friday morning for 3D in Review. And I'm going to show, put together a little step-by-step on how to do that. But it's really easy to do, and it's the next step. You know, so if you don't have a 3D printer, you can still make your own 3D molds and make your own gummy bearers of your face. And I'm also working on how to actually, using mesh mixers and other tools, how to create inverted objects. So essentially, you can make your own molds and print them without having to go to the next step. So look for that soon. So that's what I've been working with. So on to the final items, which is announcements. So we'll kind of go around if there's anything that any of you are working with that you want to launch. I've got a few items myself, but we'll go ahead and identify. So Susan, we'll start with you. Anything coming up that you want to talk about? Maybe a device? I don't know.
No, I think you know, we've just launched the Matter and Form scanner, so we're now kind of getting feedback from everybody. One of the things that we'll be going out with very soon is content. So I think we've got some really exciting people that we're working with who are going to be creating some really awesome content. But our content is also by and for the community. So for anybody who is interested in the 3D space and who has questions or has an interesting project, we're not just interested in our own thing. It's not about us. It's really about you and the community. So we'd love to hear from you and find out what you're doing. And we'd love to spotlight you if you're doing something that's really cool and introduce you to our users. So I think that's really the thing I'd love to get out there.
Cool.
And if people want to find out more about Matter and Form, where can we do that?
I'll make sure in the show notes that we have your link as well.
Thank you. You can do that at matterandform.net. And also you can email me directly at susan@matterandform.net. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd just love to hear from you and knowing what you're doing. That's really, you know, we love to frame it around you guys, not us. So.
Okay. And your product is available?
It is. It has just started shipping. Well, not only has it started shipping, people actually have it. In fact, I think most people now have their Mandarin form 3D scanners and are starting to use them, and we're getting some great reviews, and it's really fun. So yeah, we started shipping last week, and people now have them. So, and there are a few left in this production run, and then we'll be into the next production run.
Okay, so somebody wanted to order one today.
Absolutely.
What's the time scale?
Right now, you would probably get into the production run, and if not, it will be within the next few weeks.
Okay, that sounds great. Sander, anything going on?
Yeah, actually, I thought that reading the agenda, this would be just you making some announcements about the show, but I can mention a few things. In the beginning of September, Ultimaker is going to the 3D print show in London. And we have been nominated for a couple of awards as a Best Printer and Brand of the Year. So if anybody wants to help us out by voting, please feel free, help us win. And we're also moving to New York in the Maker Faire in New York, and we have a couple of announcements there. I can't really tell much about them yet because of an embargo, but if you stay tuned on our social channels. A couple of weeks before the show, we'll start spreading some news.
And John, you just sent me a link, so I'm going to put that up here in a moment. Let me get back to my main screen. And so go ahead and talk about it, and I'll put you up here.
Yeah, so it's official. The big giant Delta printer is now up and running, and Steve's got some big vase prints he ran off this weekend. So I figured that was our announcement. We finally got it all together and working.
Wow, look at that!
This thing is still called the Parts Daddy? Yes?
Yep.
Part Daddy.
Part Daddy?
Oh, that is too fun that it's going. He actually has the thing running.
Yeah, we actually talked about you on Friday because somebody's created a 5-foot version ceramic Delta printer. So this one's a little bit bigger than that, obviously.
Yeah, just a little.
So did you find out if you're the world record holder or don't care?
I guess we're going to kind of do it like you used to do in the backyard wrestling days. We're going to call it the world's largest until somebody comes and challenges it. But they better be real rested because it was a workout getting that thing going.
Oh, I bet.
Great. So obviously, Jesse, there are a lot of announcements from Autodesk and some that you can't talk about, but one of my items you can go ahead and bring up. You're going to be at Maker Faire in New York.
Yep, so we will be at Maker Faire in New York, but I think more important than that is we are going head-to-head with Ultimaker at 3D Print Show in London for many of those awards, many of the same awards. But I really do think it's just important that people go out and vote for those things. It's really becoming like a really fun. I don't know. I think it's a great awards weirdo. We all get up there and make asses of ourselves in front of people, and I just think it's a great event. And to go out there and vote for somebody, and I think we're up for a bunch of those there as well.
Can I jump in with something I forgot, and that is that we too are up for an award at the London 3D Print Show, and we'll be there as Best Consumer Product, which is very exciting because we're so brand new, so we're very excited. So we hope people will vote for us too. Vote for all of us.
We should have a reunion there.
Yeah, I think so.
There you go.
You're like I forgot. I didn't get that memo about London or something.
I got the TCT. Yeah. This is the TCT show.
I don't even have it on my list of shows, so obviously I didn't get the memo either. All right, so we'll run back into my list of things to go, and then we'll wrap it up today. You guys can go to sleep, or maybe go to sleep, or have another lunch or something. But so things I have is that there's an Inside 3D Printing Conference and Expo. We went to the one in San Jose. It's in Hong Kong now, August 26th to the 27th. Again, over in Asia, in Korea. That's South Korea. There's the 2014 IT Convergence Expo, which is going to have a large section on 3D printing. And then the 3D Printing and Additive Manufacturing Summit, and obviously I don't know where it's at, September 16th through the 18th. And then the 3D Printing Technology Show, September 16th through the 19th. And then obviously, as both Jesse and Sandra has identified, Maker Faire in New York. So this is where I bought my Ultimaker 2, was Maker Faire, and that was a long journey. Journey.
Yeah.
It must be appropriate.
Yeah, one of these days I want to make it to that one. It's just it's kind of a stretch financially as far as we have such a great Maker Faire here, and it's only a 3-hour drive, so
sadly I didn't get to make. So some local announcements. We've got a couple. We have obviously this roundtable that's going to be up probably by the weekend, but our next one is taking 3D to the next level, which will be September 24th. So we'll see. Some of you want to come back and talk about that. That would be good. But essentially, what kind of tools do you need to take 3D from just a hobby into a more industrial, professional market? And then we have 3D in medicine seminar that I'm going to be putting on in the San Luis Obispo area. That's going to talk about how 3D is influencing medicine. It's obviously a topic of love for me. I was able to use it to help with my wife's operation, and I think it's a good subject, and I think a lot of people need to be aware of the tools that not only what's happening in the industry, but what they can use personally to help them. So, look forward to that. And that's about it. So, again, thank you, Jesse, for coming on, and JJ for being blue. John, thank you. Sander, thank you for staying up for us. We kind of watched the sunset.
No problem.
And then Susan at the last minute. Really appreciate you coming on and adding a floral touch. And I love your clock in the background. It's mesmerized me. And then to my co-host, Chris,
and good one.
Mike. Again, thank you, and wrap it up, Chris.
All right, well, and thanks especially to our listeners. We really enjoy having these roundtable discussions, and hope you learned as much as I did and take away as much as I did. And we hope to see you next time on All Things 3D.
Bye.
Ciao.